afternoon, a famous digital analyst coming all the way from San Francisco. He is the principal analyst at Automated Group, based in Silicon Valley. He's also a best-selling author. He's joining us today to share his thoughts on Silicon Valley trends and the state of digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Solis.
Thank you. And Xavier, that was a wonderful way to kick off this event. So I am from San Francisco, and the one thing that makes us unique, aside from having a Golden Gate Bridge and trolley cars, is the way of life that we have. We don't just invest in technology because that's what you're supposed to do. We invest in technology to change the world because we start with one important question, and that question is why? Why do we have to do things the way we've always done them? Why can't we do things differently? And so coming all the way from San Francisco to talk about innovation and disruption and digital transformation, nothing says innovation like a PowerPoint deck. So I'm going to use PowerPoint to help tell a story. And that story is that the world of consulting is changing. Digital transformation is an opportunity. And there are a couple of ways to look at this. One is from the approach of a consultant, and we have to ask ourselves, does the world need another consultant? The world actually needs a hero. Change comes down to people and politics and all of the fun things that we have to deal with when we're not using frameworks. And people need us to help them make decisions, to help them make the case for change, to help accelerate digital transformation because we know it's going to do good for the business. But what else? Digital transformation isn't enough. And I think part of the problem, especially living in Silicon Valley, is that we look at technology to be the solution, but it's not. It's an enabler. It's an enabler to do something better, to do something great, to do something different, and that's where you come in. Behavior is changing. Technology is influencing how behavior changes. I'm a digital analyst. I study disruptive technology for a living, and it still doesn't make sense. Understanding people, anthropology, psychology, sociology, these are the things that make digital transformation mean something. Companies that focus on the bottom line to improve profitability, increase margins and scale and efficiencies in operations, those companies are going to do very well. But companies that focus on a higher purpose will always outperform those companies. So what is the purpose? What is it that we can do to change? The fascinating thing about the times that we live in today is that we're going to watch some of the biggest companies in the world fall. And it isn't going to be because they didn't transform. It's going to be because they completely missed how their customer was changing. We've already started to see it in the past. We saw it with Kodak, right? We're the last generation to know what the Kodak moment means. Right? Now you have an Instagram moment or a Snapchat moment for as ever long as it lasts. Now the Kodak moment means that moment where businesses fail to recognize how to engage people and how to mean something to people. And that's where we come in. It's not just about digital transformation. Pretty soon that's going to be something that every business is going to do. So what makes us stand out? Some of the trends, let's just go through them. I call this the wheel of disruption because, number one, it's disruptive. Two, it just keeps spinning. And I can't keep up with it. And at the center of this wheel are three of the major trends right now driving a lot of transformation, a lot of disruption. And that is real-time, mobile, and social. And most of the apps, most of the networks, most of the services are based on this. But it only gets bigger, right? Because of all of these digital economies that are happening, whether it's big data, or the app economy, or the ephemeral web, or gamification, or messaging, or second screen, or first screen. But then there's more. Oh, there's wearables and the Internet of Things and the maker market and the sharing economy. Right when I finished this, then there was a whole other stuff that I have to create another ring around. The API economy, alternative currencies, mass personalization, the anonymous web. We can talk digital all day long, and it still won't help us get any closer to being relevant to people. Because all of these things are having an effect on you and me, right? We didn't always take selfies. But now that we do, it's more than narcissism, right? How many of you have taken the ice bucket challenge? Show of hands. Wow, wow, okay. Congratulations. And but now there's the instant gratification economy in digital, where apps and services are being created because right now you're sitting here and you want a glass of champagne. Well, there's an app for that. I'm happy for that, by the way. However, what is this doing? At a human level, it's introducing new supply to the market, which is influencing new demand, which is influencing new behavior, all based on the ability to curate services, people, products, based on a reputation system, right? Look at Uber. Look at Airbnb, which creates trust. You transact based on trust. All of these things are very human. And the reason why digital transformation is going to be important is because people are changing. And the digital transformation that we pursue, the digital transformation that we help lead companies through, is going to be because we're going to help our companies have a Kodak moment that means something more important now, which is relevance. We're going to help them see what it takes to react to, but ultimately influence new behavior, right? Technology is going to keep changing, and roadmaps are going to have to keep evolving, which means that companies are going to need models of agility and resilience to make decisions faster. But as you well know, the number one thing preventing all of this is a sense of urgency. So we have to help make the case for urgency. Understanding that helping people do things better or differently is going to happen with or without us. I was inspired by your theme around borderless engagement. It's not just about transcending screens or breaking down silos. What this really is about is building a bigger community between customers and businesses and executives and suppliers and manufacturing that just helps us compete in a way that makes things not just more relevant, but meaningful. One of the reasons why disruption is disrupting is because it can, and it will, with or without us. It's a matter of perspective. See, as an analyst, as someone who's a little bit older, I come to this moment, I come to decisions, I come to clients based on an experience. My life experience, my work experience. But that is now starting to work against me, because I don't have the perspective that allows me naturally to see how things are different in order to disrupt, in order to help companies see what they don't see today. Companies like Tesla are showing us that just by the nature of being counterintuitive, they're winning. The idea of a car as a platform for software, for patent design around electricity and charging stations around the world. Elon Musk did something that's basically unthinkable, and that was to give away all of their patents, to open it up, to change the industry. Because the way that we thought about competing and the way that we're going to build markets and change the world different. Look, living in Silicon Valley, there is no shortage of companies that will say, you should invest in us because we're the Uber of ... or we're the Airbnb of ... And that's fantastic. Maybe those will yield a 4 or 10x return, and some of these other companies that are really looking at innovation are going to deliver an 800x return. But the point is that that has nothing to do with the location in the world, right? It has everything to do with your perspective and whether or not you can see the world for what it could be, not the way it is. And I ask you to think about this because legacy, making decisions based on the world we know, is a form of iteration, right? With roots in the past. But innovation breaks new ground. We have brands coming from all over the world opening offices in Silicon Valley because they just want a little bit of that magic. Maybe if they can plug into Silicon Valley, it'll magically change their company. And I work with a lot of these companies. We all do the same tour. It's like Disneyland. Executives come through and they meet with Google and Facebook and Twitter and Cisco. And then they go back, they high-five each other. That's a great trip. And then they do nothing. And a lot of this has to do with culture, decision-making, legacy, and not seeing the world for what it could be, right? Building an ecosystem within an organization that emulates Silicon Valley has everything to do with support, culture, failing, and that being okay. New rewards for trying, not just performing against legacy. Digital transformation comes down to people. If we don't understand how we're changing, what our behaviors are and our expectations are, then we're always going to be caught up in a cycle of trying to react. When in fact this is a moment where we can help companies lead and pave a new future. And all that takes is a different lens in how we look at the world, and how we look at our clients, and how we help them. And I'd like to share with the few minutes that I have left how perspective needs to change and how simple it can be. See, relevance is a really important word to me. It means that I'm trying to learn about you so that I can earn a part of your life, be a part of your life. I don't just expect it. This is the world. And I can tell you a lot of executives would look at this picture and say, that is exactly what's wrong with kids today. They don't make eye contact anymore. They don't look at me. And then that's that moment when you realize, oh my gosh, I am my parents. I am getting old. Because it is, to them, the best party ever. They're telling each other that right now. Isn't this the best? Yes, this is the best party. They're telling everybody that follows them. It's fantastic. It's the relationship of people through that screen that we need to pay attention to. Not that the behavior that we don't agree with. It's just a shift in perspective. You can't build a future on old technology, yet a lot of the ways that businesses operate today are using technology that was invented before the browser. Ooh. That's ridiculous when you think about it. Most people click that disk to save a file. They've never even seen it. And it's because nobody's ever said, excuse me, Microsoft? What is that? It starts with questioning everything. I don't even know what to say. I have so many of these things in my living room, and it's iterative, right? I've never thought to question, why do I use these things? I hate it, I have so many to control, the TV and the radio and this and that. And now when we have the Internet of Things, imagine how many other remote controls you're going to have for your lights and your front door and your mailbox and your refrigerator. But when you question everything like why, for example, some of you in this room grew up naturally by doing this, how you control glass. And if I were to show you a remote control, you might say, who in their right mind thought that putting 100 buttons on a brick was the best way to control this piece of glass? And it took Steve Jobs to get us to see it differently, right? Because he questioned why. And if you look at the evolution of the remote control, it's also ridiculous. It's gotten worse over time. Because somebody didn't say, maybe we should try something differently. Maybe we should see the world differently in order to be a more natural, intuitive way. Technology is best when it is invisible. It is becoming a way of life, which is what Silicon Valley is all about. It's about a way of life to make technology an enabler for you. And that's where businesses are going to transform, right? You know this. I'm a big fan of your work in digital transformation. But let's really get down to what the problem is. In a report that I published about a month ago, we asked companies about their digital transformation efforts, and 88% said that they were undergoing a formal digital transformation effort right now. That's part of the problem, and I'll show you why. Only 25% of those companies have actually looked at their digital customer in order to make decisions about what digital transformation should mean. That's horrible. That means that they're doing what they've always done, what the remote control has been, why there's a floppy disk in PowerPoint or Word. It's because they're making decisions about change based on legacy, based on the way that they've always done things, and that's where you and I come in. We have to help them see the world differently, starting with questions like, what would my digital customer do, and how is that different? What would my digital employee do, and how is that different? When I talk to companies, they say things like, yes, we make decisions without knowing our customer at all, because that's what we do. And then I'll get quotes like the Henry Ford one that's famous. If I would have asked customers what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. That's why we don't need to listen to customers. They don't know what they want. But then when you question everything, like I did, you actually find out that there's no physical proof that Henry Ford ever said that. I even called the Henry Ford Museum. But what he did say was, if there was one key to success, it was to get the perspective of someone else and add that to your own, to let it inform and inspire you. So really what this comes down to is that digital transformation is human. It comes down to people, and we're supposed to learn from it so that we change too. There's a famous Leo Tolstoy quote, which was, we all talk about change, but we never talk about changing ourselves. And that's what the transformation is about in digital, and it starts with us. So I'll leave you with this. This is fantastic. There are also toilets for little children that can hold an iPad in case you're shopping. But it's a visual metaphor for how we take an approach. If you had to reinvent the remote control, what would it look like? If you had to reinvent business to be relevant for the future, what would it look like? Because, as Xavier said, there is no global framework yet. That's because you and I need to make it, and we need to build it. And it starts with why. And it ends with what if. what if we could do this better, different, in a way that matters for people that we might not understand, but we're going to start to understand, because that's what the future is all about. You and me. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you have maybe a question for Brian here. This is a one-time event. You won't see the guy who's going back to San Francisco, so it's now or never. If you have questions, anybody? Come on, don't be shy. Yeah, questions there, probably Mike. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Arnaud Sayak from the Paris office. Mr. Solis, thank you for this presentation. I have a bit of a provocative question. I understand from your presentation today that you say, go for it, innovate, try. I've had the chance of listening to you a few months ago at the Low Web conference in Paris last December, and I'm a little bit surprised because you were a bit more cautious 9 months ago. You were telling us about the innovation traps, the potential benefits of being a second mover. You took the illustration of the first bird gets the first worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. There's a mouse trap. So what is your message today? Do we need to go for it now, or do we need to keep in mind the potential traps of innovation?
First of all, I'm taking you everywhere where I go. This was a presentation from December, and he just recited all of the slides, so thank you. Really. That was an audience, by the way, for those who haven't been to the web, of entrepreneurs. And my message to these are people who are running startups or people looking at investing or acquiring startups. And my message to them was to think about the companies you're looking at and what they're really trying to do, and whether you're trying to get a short-term return or a long-term return, because I was trying to inspire those guys to innovate, to influence, not manipulate human behavior. So my message to you is you have to try right now. And that is the one thing that we didn't get to at the web, but I did have slides for it, was the secret of Google. One of the things about Silicon Valley that everybody celebrates is this concept of ship, which is Facebook language. That means build and get it out. And Google's fail fast. And these are concepts that I have to try to find the balance in. When we talk about changing people and trying and failing, what we're really talking about is incentivizing people to take a chance, to ask questions, and to try something new. The word fail is misleading because it's a word that carries negative connotations, like, I failed. This sucks. But what it doesn't tell us is that, well, what if I tried and I got rewarded for trying? And then I got managed based on how many times I tried and I succeeded, or how many things helped us change. Because the world in which we live in doesn't move as fast as Silicon Valley. We have to start inside, and we have to start trying now, because we are going to make mistakes. But we have to also learn from those mistakes. So for us, we have to be both a first mover and also the second mouse. Because if we don't try, we can't learn. And if we don't try, we can't innovate. And if we don't fail and learn from that, we can't disrupt. And that's really what the message is about. Great question, and I will buy you a glass of champagne when I'm back at Le Web this year.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Maybe I can see a lady here. Yeah, do you have Mike? Who might be able to give a mic over here. Perfect. Lovely.
Diana is Capgemini Consulting North America. And I was intrigued by the point that you made that digital transformation is about human behavior first, because that's something that I've been preaching to my clients. A lot of clients and companies don't see it that way and still go technology first. What are some of your suggestions on how to convey that message around the importance of the behavioral aspects of digital transformation in front of customers?
Well, there's no easy answer for that, but I'll do my best. one of the things that I learned along the way was that in order to be really convincing, I had to be both a lawyer and a politician. And I was telling the story yesterday about how that came to be, and that was a lawyer gathers evidence to make the case. Because a lot of times, you're talking to somebody who's a human being, but when they get to the office, they get into the process of doing things. The second one is a politician, because not only do you have to give them evidence, you have to be able to bring people together that either don't know each other or don't want to talk to each other, like the CMO and the CIO. But that does get people to see things differently when you can be compelling like that. For example, how many of you in this room have watched the show Undercover Boss? Wow, okay. That's more people than the Ice Bucket Challenge. I love that show even though it has the same exact ending every episode. And that show has a recipe for making the case, because there's a moment of empathy that happens, right? Because decision makers make decisions based on Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints and graphics and forecasts, not ever based on what they see in the real world. But that's what that show's about. It's about showing them what the real world is. And at the end, there's cheers and crying and promises of a brighter future. And it always says something like this: I forgot what it was like to be a customer. Forgot what it was like to be an employee. And that's the story that we need to tell. And that data isn't in a journey map. That data needs to be in a journey map. That story needs to be in a journey map, because we have to give people a gift of empathy to remind them what this was about. And that's not something that you hear a lot in business, but I can tell you that it's like they found the fountain of youth or something that is so brilliant, because they open their eyes and they say, oh my gosh, that makes all the sense in the world, because it's logic. And that's why business is illogical, but we have to fix that. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Do we have time for one more?
We have 2-3 minutes, probably one last question. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Lena, Capgemini Germany, and I have just a quick question for you, because you mentioned, well, our clients have to change, it's a digital transformation, but you also mentioned that we as consultants have to change. And I heard a couple of new approaches. I know for Capgemini China, you introduced an incubator. We have some labs in Germany opening up, in France they already did it. Do you have some more thoughts on that, how we can tackle the change, how we have to change? Do we have to form teams maybe of, I don't know, combination of developers, consultants? I don't know, some thoughts?
I'll leave that to you guys to answer, but I'll share some thoughts of just saying, first, the most difficult part of changing ourselves is actually saying that we could do something different or better, right? Just accepting that. But the second thing is one of the best things about Silicon Valley, and this is true actually for any place that just believes that they can do something better. Xavier has already asked you to be empowered. You are empowered. That means that you don't have to necessarily work up or down. The best opportunities are when you work across and start bringing people together to start answering those questions. And that doesn't have to just happen here this week. That should actually become part of your routine. And I'm talking about more than just having special speakers come in at lunch or special offsites. This now, like in Silicon Valley, has to become a way of life, right? And that is one of the things that we celebrate in Silicon Valley, is the culture of working together. Taking out the whole idea of hierarchies, at least for a moment, and finding out where do we need to get stronger, where are our gaps now, and how do we solve for those as a team. And you do that every day, because this change doesn't end. Technology doesn't slow down. If we think selfies are funny, you just wait for the next thing. We always have to keep changing. And that's part of what makes living right now so special, because we're witnessing some pretty fantastic moments in the world of business and and education and government, and it all happens because we believe that we could be better, do things differently, starting with ourselves. So thank you very much. Thank you, Asha.
One last thing, Brian, we have 1 minute. Can somebody bring the ice buckets for Brian? Thank you very much, Brian.